It is never the big thing. It is the cabinet door, the way it closes, not slammed, just closed the way it has been closed 9,000 times before, and tonight it goes through you like a nail. Or it is the third time someone asked you the same question, or a spoon left in the sink at an angle you could describe from memory. And the strange part is that you know the size of the reaction does not match the size of the thing. You are standing there furious about a spoon, fully aware that it is a spoon. I have done this. I once went quiet for a whole evening because of a sound someone made putting a dish down. Not a word, just quiet. And I remember thinking, while it was happening, that this was ridiculous and not being able to stop. We usually reach for one of two explanations. The first one is, I am stressed. Work, money, sleep, all of it. The spoon just happened to be standing there when the pressure found a way out. The second one is quieter and worse. Maybe something is wrong with us. Maybe this is what it looks like when a relationship starts to go. There is a third explanation. It is less dramatic than either of those, and it is the only one of the three that has actually been measured, not remembered, not written down at the end of the week by someone rounding himself up into a better person, recorded by sensors on the bodies of 12 people who could not leave. By the end of this, I think you will stop looking for the problem inside the two of you and start looking at the shape of the room. There is a research station in Antarctica called Concordia. It sits on the polar plateau at a place called Dome C, 3,233 meters above sea level, 1,100 kilometers inland from the nearest coastal base. It is run jointly by the French and Italian polar programs. For 9 months of the year, nobody can reach it. No flights, no vehicles, limited communication. If you are there in March, you are there in November. The coldest temperature ever recorded at that station is minus 84.6 degrees Celsius. European Space Agency uses Concordia as a stand-in for a mission to Mars because the stressors belong to the same family: extreme isolation, and, the part that matters tonight, confinement. In 2026, a study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences followed the 12 people who spent one of those winters there. Two things were measured. The crew wore proximity sensors which logged automatically who was physically near whom and for how long. No memory involved. And separately, at 4 points across the mission, they answered questionnaires about loneliness, trust, conflict, cohesion, and how well they thought the team was doing. Everyone expected the enemy to be loneliness. That is the story we have about Antarctica and about space, and honestly about most hard places. The danger is that there is nobody there. That is not where the data pointed. Spending more time near the other crew members was not consistently linked to better social outcomes. The people with the most frequent contact were also more likely to report that conflict had gone up, that trust had gone down, and that performance had dropped. Jan Schmutz, who led the work at the University of Zurich, put it plainly. In small teams under extreme conditions, more contact does not automatically equal social support. It can raise tension instead. And across the months, something else happened. The group did not stay one group. It came apart into smaller ones along lines of shared language and nationality. 12 people, one building, quietly sorting themselves into pockets. I want to be careful here, because this is the point where a video like this usually oversells. The analysis is correlational. The researchers say so themselves. It cannot tell us that being close together caused the conflict. It could run the other way. People already in conflict might end up crossing paths more. We do not know. So I am not going to tell you that closeness damages people. I want to say something smaller than that and more useful. In a space with no exit, more contact stops being automatically good. That is the whole finding, and I think it explains a spoon. Because your home is a small Concordia. Not always, but there are seasons. The third month after moving in together, the week a long-distance relationship becomes one address. The 7th week of parental leave, the 3rd day back at your parents' house. The 2nd week of a holiday everybody was looking forward to. The same 4 people in the same office, every day, for 2 years. What those have in common is not that the affection went anywhere. It is that the doors went away. And doors go quietly. Nobody announces it. The commute disappears, and with it, the 40 minutes a day when you are nobody's anything. The spare room becomes storage. The holiday merges 2 calendars into 1 calendar. Nobody fought about any of this. It simply got easier to always be in the same room, so you always were. Here is what splitting into subgroups looks like in a house. Two people on the same sofa, each one on their own phone. I do not think that is coldness. I think it is the most reasonable thing available. When a building has no doors, people build them out of whatever is lying around, and a screen is the cheapest door ever made. It is not a good door. It does not shut properly and the other person can see you using it, but it is what is there. This is not a new problem. It is at least 175 years old, and it was written down as a picture rather than an argument. In 1851, in the second volume of Parerga and Paralipomena, section 396, Schopenhauer describes a group of porcupines on a cold winter day. They huddle together for warmth. The quills start to hurt, so they move apart. The cold brings them back. The quills push them out again. They go back and forth between two miseries until they find the distance at which they can just about tolerate one another. Two small notes because they are true and almost nobody mentions them. He wrote porcupines, not hedgehogs. The famous name for this, the hedgehog's dilemma, got the animal wrong on the way over, and the reason most of us have heard of it at all is that Freud quoted the passage in a footnote in 1921. But the part I care about is his answer. The distance they find, Schopenhauer says, is politeness and good manners. That is the solution. Be civil. Keep a courteous margin, and the quills will not reach you. And then, in the same breath, he states the price. By this means, he writes, the need for mutual warmth is only imperfectly satisfied. So the solution we have been handed for 175 years is this: put your quills away. And the cost, admitted openly by the man proposing it, is that you get less of the warmth too. That is not a fix. That is a painkiller. It works by turning the whole signal down. What the Antarctic data does, I think, is change which variable we are supposed to adjust. Schopenhauer's variable is your character, how gracious you can be, how much you can absorb without showing it. The other variable is the room, whether it lets anybody leave. And that difference matters for a very practical reason. Patience is a supply. It runs out. On a bad week, it runs out by 7 in the evening. A door does not get tired. There is research on why leaving helps, and the finding is more modest than you would expect, which is exactly why I trust it. In 2018, Twybe Ewan, Richard Ryan, and Edward Deci published a study in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin on what solitude actually does to feeling. What they found is called the deactivation effect. Being alone brings high arousal emotion down. And here's the honest part. It brings both kinds down. Anger drops. So does excitement. So solitude does not make you happier. It turns the volume down, which happens to be the exact thing a cabinet door needs. Two details from that work are worth keeping. The effect showed up when people were genuinely alone and not when another person was in the room. Half leaving does not count, and when people got to choose what they did with the time, the good feelings did not fall away with the rest. That last point got its own confirmation in 2022, when TC, Lei, and Nakamura ran 3 experience sampling studies and found that chosen solitude and unchosen solitude are not the same experience at all. Autonomy was the variable that mattered, which tells you something about how to do this, and it is close to the opposite of what most of us actually do. Most of us take our time alone by leaving in the middle of an argument. That is unchosen solitude for both people. You get a room, but you get it while your heart is going, and the other person does not read it as rest. They read it as a verdict. So, build the door before you need it. 3 conditions, and it fails if any one of them is missing. 1. Agreed in advance, not during. On an ordinary evening when nothing is wrong, which is the only time this conversation can be heard properly. 2. Predictable. A fixed slot beats a long one. 20 minutes that happens every day does more than 5 hours that happens when somebody finally cracks. Predictable means the other person never has to work out what it means. 3. No explanation required. That is the whole value of it. A door you have to justify every time you use it is not a door. It is a request. And requests can be turned down, so you will stop making them, and then you are back where you started. If you do not know how to raise it, you are welcome to steal this. I want to tell you something that is not about you. I need 20 minutes a day where I do not have to answer anyone. Not because of you. Because after those 20 minutes, there is something left to give you. And one more thing, because I do not want this to land wrong. Wanting to be near the person you love is not a flaw to be managed. Most of the time it is simply right, and it is most of the point. This is not an argument for distance. It is an argument about what happens in a space with no way out. The problem is the door, not the people. So, back to the cabinet. It was loud because of what came before it, not because you were small, or brittle, or worse at this than other people are. It was loud because by then you had gone 40 hours without being outside of anyone's line of sight, and there was no version of that evening in which that was going to change. And the 12 people at Concordia were not immature. They are among the most carefully selected human beings on the planet, screened, trained, prepared, doing something they chose. Everything they needed, they had. Except one door. You are not harder to live with than you used to be. You have just gone a long time without a place where you do not have to be anything.